I'm gonna try this one too. We got like 9 things recording. Anchor would like to use the microphone.
Just in case.
Whoa, it's recording. Let's see how that rolls. What were we just talking about? Because like I'll listen to these ultra marathon podcasts, and then there's like one person's like, yeah, I do like 120 miles a week. Like that's what I aim for. I'm like, it's so fucking. I'm getting like they're professional runners.
Yeah.
Other people like Ben Greenfield, his new marathons, her ultras, he does like Spartan races. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I try to be like super efficient in my recovery, and I do 10 hours of training. That's all, which is like pretty low for Ironman training.
Per week?
Yeah.
Okay.
For Ironman training. So that's like bike, swim, and run. He's only doing 10 hours.
Yeah.
And he came, like, he wasn't trying to win it, but he came like mid to the pack, and he was pretty good.
Yeah.
Then other ultra marathoners are doing, like the book says, like, for 100 miles, you can do like 50-mile weeks, you can do 70, which I think is kind of low, but it's kind of where I've been around 60. Like, I'm going to do, like, try to do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like, long. I'm going to try to, like, get, like, 60 miles in this weekend.
That's a lot.
That's been my last, yeah. If I want to get, like, used to doing, like, 20 miles tomorrow, maybe 30 miles Saturday, and then 20.
Yeah.
That'll be a lot of miles, though. But if it holds up, I'll be confident, like, I did 70 miles over 3 days.
Yeah.
And that's good.
That is good. I feel like it's so tough. There's not really.
Or I'm just crippled, and I'm like, I gotta pull out. Em, you're running for me, man. You're getting.
Take it.
You ever run 120 miles before? You're gonna. Like, how's that 50K looking now?
Yeah.
All right, we'll kick this off. This is a natural podcast, so don't be nervous.
All right.
Yeah, this is just 2 people talking.
Yeah.
So we got Melissa Jeffries, osteopath. She does osteopathy. Practicing that word. That too. So tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a friend of mine. That's always a win right there. We connected a few months ago, and you're someone who's super motivated and ambitious, and you just graduated into osteopathy. So tell us more about the practice of osteopathy, so if people don't know what exactly it is.
Yeah, nobody knows what it is. Honestly, even people who get treated, even people who get treated like still can't describe what the heck it is that I do. But osteopathy is essentially the science of the connection between the anatomy and the physiology of the body. So essentially when somebody's coming in and they have all these complaints and all these symptoms, our job is to make the connection between those symptoms and the structural components that relate to those symptoms. So for example, we'll look at the spine like a fuse box, and every part of the spine is responsible for supplying a certain part of the body. So if they're having symptoms associated with various organs, say like digestive issues, right? So we'll start asking a bunch of questions, kind of get a better idea of what those symptoms mean for that person. And we're relating it back to the structural side of things. So then our assessment is really searching for those components that could be facilitating that issue. So it's all hands-on manual therapy, but it's extremely investigative. And that's what I really like about it. It's sort of like a big puzzle every day, and every patient is treated extremely different because we're all dynamic and we all do different things day to day. So one person's issues might look like somebody else's, but structurally they're going to be completely different, so they have to be treated differently.
And how long, I know it's like everybody's different, like you just said, can you restructure a human anatomy and body? Because again, like we know better than most, because we deal with a lot of clients, and like in the fitness industry, a lot of people sit and they're very sedentary, and they haven't had like a routine exercise regimen their whole life, right? They've been very on and off, and they don't move that much, and there's a much different society now, right? We're not very stimulated with the right kind of things, and with that we're structurally kind of broken in a way, right? So what's that process like for the majority of people? I think people listening to this will probably be like, yo, I haven't done shit in a while, and how do we recognize it?
So like trying to, so essentially you're asking like how can we get them to a point where they
like what's the process like?
Honestly, it really comes down to what that person is willing to do though, right? Because you have to realize that your environment is your choice, and it's what you're choosing to put yourself through, and that's usually what has has got you to that point in the first place. So are you willing to take yourself out of that environment or change up some things? And so that's where, again, like part of the process when I'm with somebody is trying to figure out what are they doing every single day or what are they not doing every single day, and trying to pick some of those big key things that are
What
really
are some of those big key things? Is it sleep, nutrition, exercise?
Yeah, so those are some big players, but a lot of it comes down to your repetitive behaviors day to day. So when you look at somebody and you're looking at all of the restrictions in the body, we're basically looking at like what the body is favoring, what sort of motions is the body favoring, because oftentimes we're doing all these repetitive movements, and it's those that we're finding are stuck within the body. So the body now only wants to rotate to the right. It's having trouble rotating to the left, for example. So now,
Zoolander style.
Yeah.
Can't turn left.
Yeah. So it's my job now to figure out, okay, what are they doing that is making them turn to the right all the time? And so I'll start asking questions and putting little bugs in their head. And then when they come back, they're like, oh, I figured it out. I was doing this and I realized every time, I'm carrying groceries, I always carry it in the one arm, or, something simple like that. But usually it comes down to workplace because we're working for the majority of our days. So a lot of people have desk jobs, right? They might have reception jobs where they're constantly answering a phone, and maybe that phone is on the left side. So they're always rotating to the left side, and they're always kinking their head to the left there. So those are some patterns we might find in the body, but it's starting to get the pennies to drop within that person, and seeing if there are different modifications they can do. Can you put some of the stuff on the right? Are you able to get up in your day? Are you able to switch up what leg you cross? If you have to feel like you have to cross your legs all the time, are you able to just switch that up and just keep moving? And I always just think variety is the best, right? You don't always want to be doing one thing all the time. So if you can give yourself a little bit more variety, even though they're not like the best habits, it's still not doing that same repetitive thing all day. And then, once we can kind of correct that, then those other things like sleep and exercise and diet come into play as well. But I definitely think a lot of it comes down to the workplace that's really creating this environment for these people.
And how do you get them? I know obviously like they're their own person. They have to choose to adopt those practices. At the end of the day, like you can't be there 24/7. Holding their hand through it.
Yeah.
Do you find a lot of people actually adopt your habits that you suggest? Do you think that is it like off the bat they're like for the first week they try it? Do they get discouraged? Like because I know it's the biggest thing. Is like we all hear that and we're like that sounds amazing. That's easy enough to do. I'll switch up. I'll move once in a while, and I just wrote a blog about that. It's like the constant movement throughout the day. Like that's what you should kind of do. Whether it's walking stairs or getting up, and you're just moving your body and you're doing chores with your hands. You're doing different things rather than like using machines all the time and like elevators, and you're just not doing anything. Do most people that you find, that at least your clientele, are they adopting those practices? Do they find that in a certain aspect or time frame they're like, this is just, they fall off the train? Like, what do you find?
So some things are definitely a little bit more challenging to correct or make changes to. However, for the most part, a lot of my patients are very receptive. Because I think there's a little bit of tough love and honesty coming from myself and showing them, like this is making the biggest difference in your life right now, and if you can do anything to change that, you're going to notice a big difference, right? And that's going to save them time, it's going to save them money, which I think everybody wants. But I think the biggest thing is I'm able to show them exactly how those movements are creating that pattern in their body. So when I'm with them, I'm telling them sort of what I'm finding in terms that, they can kind of grasp, and then showing them, we'll actually sit and we'll go through those movements and I'll show them exactly what it is and what their body's doing. So I think now they have that visual and they can see it. And because they do want to get better and change, they do start paying attention to that a little bit more. And then they're extremely honest when they don't. So at least like we have that open communication. But for the most part, they've been very receptive. And those who aren't really at the point of making that change yet, they come back and they're like, I know, and like they get it. They get it. And I'm just like, I'll tell them, like, all right, well, I mean, you're probably gonna have to keep coming back for a while if we don't make these changes now. So
yeah, we'll talk about the money thing, because I know, like, for us, a lot of times it's like the idea, like, I don't want to, like, get rid of my hard-earned money as like for like something that's not there, which we're all messed up, man. Our bodies, we move certain ways, like we talk about, that we don't even sometimes feel the pain, and all of a sudden there's like a twinge, like, oh, I tweaked my back yesterday, but like, hey man, like, it wasn't just yesterday that you did that. So like, what would you talk about in terms of like maintenance and like the psychology behind like treating yourself to healthcare and like actual practices that are gonna take care of you before you get hurt? And that's the idea, like, be preemptive with your routine. Like I exercise to look good now and feel good now, but it's like I'm doing that to make sure like I have longevity, so when I'm like 60 and 70 and whatever age I'm not having like these hip issues and all these like crazy chronic pains. I'm like, now I gotta rectify at a very difficult age. So talk more about that.
Yeah, so, and actually that's majority of what walks through my door, those people that wake up one day and they're like, what the hell, like, I didn't do anything and I tweaked my back, or, I just woke up with all this pain, and they just don't understand because nothing happened, like there was no defining moment where they got injured, but all of a sudden they just feel everything. The body accumulates all of these behaviors and like repetitive habits over time, right? And it's compensating constantly so you don't feel those issues. So we're going through our lives doing all these things and we don't necessarily feel it because our bodies are really good at adjusting for that to make sure that we don't have symptoms. Everything will shift right from your feet all the way to your head just to accommodate for that. But you get to a point where your body's just not going to accommodate anymore. It's not going to compensate. And that's when you wake up one day and you just feel everything. So all of this stuff is going on inside us all the time. And I think the best thing you could compare it to is maybe like maintenance of your car. So while things are good, you want to keep them good, right? But you have to understand that, you are putting your body through work and you are exercising or doing all these things.
It's such a fun perspective. Like, the car, we're like, oh, we're on top of our car for the most part. Like,
you need an oil change. You need to get your wheels realigned after winter, and we have the crazy ice storms and stuff like that, right? So that's essentially the same thing with the body, and it would be so great if everybody can kind of take that preventative approach, because in the long run you won't be spending that much money if you're taking that preventive approach now. Because I get so many people in my door and they're upset that they have to come frequently, and they're upset that they have to spend all this time getting treated or time off of those things that they really enjoy doing, and then they're spending money to do that essentially. Whereas like if you could just treat your body like a car every once in a while, check in with somebody like myself, just to make sure everything's running right, then you're less likely to have those major downfalls later, those times where you just wake up and everything feels like it's kind of come crashing on you. Less likely to have that happen, less likely to have to actually spend more time and money in therapy or rehab, whatever the case may be, trying to get your body back.
And you even see it with like trainers, right? Which is like, it's so hard for people to justify it. I get, like, it's a lot of money when someone's presenting like, hey man, like over the next 12 months it might be $5,000, $6,000, $8,000. Like I know I have clients that have paid me technically like tens of thousands of dollars like in a year if you start doing the math behind it. Like that's a lot of money, but at the same time we're very quick to like rationalize like a $2,000 a week long trip to Cancun or Mexico or Fiji or wherever the hell we're going, and it's like that's a week long trip that's very, I don't want to say fleeting, because again I advocate experiences. I spend fucking $3,000 on races and you're like, all right Brandon, like what the hell are you doing, but like it's fun, it's gonna last me a lifetime. But it's just funny the perspective that people have in terms of like where they spend their money and how that they dictate like what's important, right? And then I think that goes back to like a lack of self-awareness for a lot of people. Like they don't take the time to actually like do an overview and like self-audit of like their life and where that money's being spent, where they can save it, where they're just throwing money away. And at the end of the day, it's like, man, like this is a long-term fix. Like I get like, shit's gonna compound. Like you're gonna become 50 years old one day. You're gonna become 60, and like the idea isn't like I'll hear some people even go like, I don't care if I live a long life. It's like it's not about living. It's not like you're gonna die peacefully with no pain at like 70. It's like chances are if you beat up your body now, you're gonna have a very difficult time like later in life. At like 50, it's gonna be like it's not fun like to have constant back pain and knee pain and just feel like shit. And it's like. Yeah. Okay, man, like this shit's gonna come for you, like.
Yeah, depends on like what kind of quality of life you're looking for, right? Like, what do you want to be or be able to do?
But people don't think that they're gonna be that person.
I know nobody thinks it'll happen
it's insane to me.
Right?
Like they'll see someone, they'll see their mom who's like 20 years older than them.
Yeah.
Crazy hip pain and just fucking and like they're like going through agony for months and months and months.
Yeah.
They're not doing much that their mother didn't do. Like they're maybe a little bit more active and maybe eating a little bit healthier, which is good. But it's like you're not doing that much to not be like that in 20 years. Like would that scares the shit out of me. Like if I see someone who's like in like financial crisis, I'm like, yo man, like that scares me to be in that position. Like that fear will drive me to not be in that state. Where a lot of people are like, oh, that's just 20-year-old mom or a 20-year-old like different mom. It's like no, like that's gonna be you if you don't start really making sure those habits align, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for me too. So early on, I started looking at the older generation, just seeing like how many people were on medications, how many people needed external assistance. I think about my grandparents who, you know, needed people to help them, and I do everything in my power to hopefully, because you never know what will happen, right? But that's another component of it. But hopefully be able to live a life without drugs and without that external assistance. So a lot of my life is really inspired by that, right? And trying to avoid that because that is expensive and that's really, and it's really not much of a life to live, right? So, I mean, I don't know, people are a little, I think they think about it too late in the game, right? And it's like, well, now you've had all of these years of just deteriorating your body, right? And really beating it up. And then they'll come to somebody like me and they'll expect like to be better in a few treatments. Like, oh, no, like it's going to take a long time now because, you know, you've been doing this for so long.
I'm sure you can give like a quick fix in terms of like somebody's going to feel better. But again, at the end of the day, it's not fixing the problem.
So they'll feel better, but unfortunately it takes a while to get that body to stabilize again and to really hold that change. And that's sort of like our goal is to get the body stabilized where now it can function without somebody like me or without those external aids, right? And that's the part that takes a while. So I mean, they can come and feel better, sure, but like my goal is to get them on their own where they don't need somebody to help them all the time, right? And that's the difficult part.
Yeah, and that's freedom, right? That allows you to like live a life that you want to live and not be held down, right? And especially if you're like at a stage of life where you have that freedom and autonomy, like do what you want. You don't have to work anymore. Like, wouldn't you want those years? And like, I know we're talking like if a 25-year-old's listening, they're like, fuck, man, like 60 is so far away. I don't give a shit about 60.
Yeah.
But it's even now, like I'm telling you, from 25 to 30, like there's gonna be a gap, right, where you start feeling shit more often.
Oh yeah.
And then you're gonna want to like get in shape at 30, and you're gonna want to rectify these behaviors, and it goes more than just the physical, right? It goes into the emotional, mental, and we're seeing it now more than ever as this like epidemic of people with like suicides and depression and anxiety, and it's coming through a lot of different habits, and it's not just you don't take care of your body as like physically are you broken, and you're like I can just get past that. And it's funny how everything really connects, and I think people are just, ignorant towards, like they're just like ignorance is bliss, right? They're like, I just don't know. It's just how life is supposed to be.
Yeah.
But when we start tying everything together, and it made me think last night I was in bed and I started thinking of all these things, and I was like, I had to write some shit down, and it was the idea of I think people think at a certain age their body's supposed to respond a certain way.
Yeah.
They're like mid-30s, 40s. They're like, I lose my sex drive. Like my testosterone goes down or whatever. It's like, okay, yeah, that does happen, don't get me wrong. But there's things you can do to obviously like, increase blood flow and have like, better testosterone and like not being okay with being like, I just have sex like once a month with my wife. It's like, okay, like that's a life you can choose.
Yeah.
And you can be like, I'm okay with that. But it's like, you don't really understand the component of like, no, like you actually want to have more sex. It's just that you don't have the blood flow going to the right places, to the brain and to the sexual organs.
Yeah.
That you're like, man, you would have a much more engaged, fulfilling, exciting life. I guarantee. And then, I'd always make jokes when I'd see a teacher walk in when I was like in grade 7. They'd be like, they're usually a dick, and all of a sudden they're like happy. I'm like, oh, like Mr. Beveridge got laid last night, like it's a different mode, man. Like you can't tell me that you're gonna live with someone for 2 months. And you're like, oh, we have sex randomly, and then when you do, it's like kind of like one and done.
Yeah.
And it's like okay, like you can accept that as your life and say it's okay. Like this is just it's okay with me, but it's like life can be way better is what we're saying.
Yes.
And that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm like, if you're totally okay with it, and you're like, this is a life that I'm fully satisfied, do you?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I teach and I talk a lot about self-optimization. How do you optimize your life? How are you at your most excited and stimulated and engaged? And there's so many components that we're not taking into consideration that we think is working out is just the physical and it's hard work. It's like, okay, man, but that's going to keep your tests a little bit higher, and it's going to allow you to have good sex into your 50s or 60s, whatever the hell it is. And that's a big component for people.
Yep.
To be mid-30s and 40s and be like,
yeah,
that's fucked.
Yep.
Right? And people are accepting it as if it's normal.
Yeah.
And this is at least a platform to be like, hey, this isn't normal behavior, or it might be normal, but it doesn't have to be normal.
No, absolutely. Yeah. Again, people, I think they kind of follow suit with what they hear and what they see.
And I'm sure the majority of their friends are talking oh yeah, man, I have a hard time getting an erection, and I don't really have sex with my wife either. And you're like, high five, fucking mid-30s. And you're like, okay.
Yeah,
man.
I certainly hope not.
Right? But it's more than we think. And I need to fucking go in and start talking to corporations about this shit, because you are much more satisfied and fulfilled with life when those components are being checked off. That is a human biological need of wanting to have that sexual connection, and to be half of your life is done, 1/3 of it, and you're kind of already thrown in the towel. It's like, man, no, you can change your diet up, you can change your your routine, you can reduce your stress. All these things aren't just oh, I'm stressed financially, or I'm stressed at work, it's a burden on me emotionally.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the thing we need to rectify, but it's going into other components.
Yeah.
And there's so many things that people can do that they're not even giving themselves a shot. I was listening to an Aubrey Marcus podcast the other day, and they were talking about how a bowl of dark leafy cruciferous vegetables and things like beets can really help increase nitric oxide flow, right? And have that blood flow going. And things that you can take that will also enhance that, the brain flow to the blood flow to the brain and to the sexual organs. And I can just think, I don't think a lot of people are probably even taking that into consideration. They don't understand the power behind eating beets. And you're gonna be I hear some guys fuck these dark leafies, it's charred, it's disgusting. Okay, man, there's other things you can do. Dark chocolate's a good option. There's other things you can source to make your life more fulfilling in other areas. And I think that it's not just a one-off where it's emotionally unfulfilled. It's but how is that playing into the other 6 pillars or the other 5 pillars?
Yeah, I think people underestimate the power of some of these things and just how incredible they are. Our bodies are meant to do everything on their own, right? Your body has its own pharmacy. That's why drugs work the way they do, because there's receptors in your body for those drugs to bind to, which means that those receptors are already in your body. It means your body already creates that itself, right? So your body is meant to do all these things on its own if it's given the right environment to do so, right? So if your environment's really good, both internally and externally, all these things should realistically be functioning extremely well. And I think a lot of people don't really realize, what their environment is doing to them, and just how much that can be in their control too. Simple things like you said, eating more vegetables, right? It's so beneficial. But people don't realize just how beneficial it is. And when you're young, again, that's that thing where you don't really understand or feel it when you're young. It's when you're older that all of this comes crashing down on you.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the day too, people just have their own excuses when it comes to a lot of this stuff, right? Oh, I'm too tired. Oh, I'm too busy. Oh, you know what I mean?
These are all things we can rectify, which is hilarious when I hear it.
I know. So it's hey, what do you want your life to be? At the end of the day, what do you want? Do you want to just sit around and do nothing and not be stimulated? And to me that's boring as hell. So
of course, and most people, even to them, it has to be. And again, there's going to be some I don't say outliers because like I don't like that term for somebody who's lazy. It's like they're an
Yeah.
outlier. And
Yeah.
fuck, I wish I was him. But there's gonna be certain people that are just like they're stimulated with like understimulating things. Like they can like sit down and chill and like I get it, man. Like I get the idea of being comfortable, and if that's who you are and like and you're being true to who you are. And again, that's my biggest thing anytime I like kind of talk about this is like if you're authentically internally telling me like, hey bro, like this is like life is fucking good, and I always go back to like I get life is like good. This is an audio. I'm doing quotations right now.
Spit my water out.
Hey, this is a good old Mac, and this is Mac Windows, old school, and it's just the idea that like, but life can be much better.
Yes.
And how do you optimize that?
Yeah.
Because like, if you're in that situation where you're like, yeah, but life's good, like, wouldn't you want to just, like, kind of see what the potential is? Like, wouldn't you want to see how life can be, like, and again, I'm not saying make drastic changes where, like, life is good and all of a sudden, like, yeah, meditate too and life would be way better. Like, I don't want to fucking meditate. Yeah. Okay, like, I get that. Like, Gary Vee was saying that, like, his life is so good. And people are like, why don't you meditate? He's like, I honestly, truly think if I meditate, he's like, I'm messing up with what's good. And I'm like, all right, man, good for you, man. Like, that's, like, if that's...
It's a tool, right?
It's a tool, you know? And I think that we sometimes undervalue these things. Oh, a lot of times we undervalue them. And we kind of just settle.
Yeah.
You know, we settle for like, all right, this is good.
Yeah.
And I think, and again, that's our environment. Like, I hang around a lot of people that are motivated and ambitious to do good, cool things. Yeah. And with that, it stimulates that, like, okay, man, like, I can have a more exciting film. Like, I've had a life that's good. I've worked jobs that are good, and I'm like, this is good. Like, life is pretty good right now. But then I'm also like, well, this is the potential that I could be at, and life could be better. It could be more stimulating, more engaging. I could have more opportunity to, like, make a difference and impact. And, like, of course I could settle and have a good life. But again, I'm telling you, it's much better when you're really optimizing those pillars.
Yeah. Well, let me just say that a lot of people are way too comfortable in misery. Like, they're way too comfortable, you know, being in that kind of, that bad place. And I don't actually know why exactly, but I think it's almost easier to stay there than it is to make that change. And I think that's the biggest thing. And I don't know, I don't think they are truly happy, to be honest. Like, a lot of, like how you said, like, you know, if that's good for you, then that's good sort of thing. I have
a hard time believing too. Like, I don't want to be like, say you're happy, like, fuck you, you're lying to me. Like, I don't want to be that guy either. But at the same time, like, I talk to a lot of people, man. I see a lot of people walk through the door and they want to change their you know, physical. And again, if you even if you're like, man, I really want to get in shape, like, that's a pillar you're not checking off. And as you can push that down and say, I don't really care. Like, yes, you do. Yeah. You came to me and you're like, fuck, man, I look in the mirror and I'm not happy with how I look. That's a fucking big thing, man. Like, I know that fucking bothers you. I know deep down, man, that fucks with your confidence. That fucks with you taking your shirt off in public. Yeah. It just fucks putting on outfits. And you're like, Yeah. You know, like, it fucks with you, man. Like, you can't tell me you're inhuman and you're like, nah, don't give a shit. It's like, yes, you do. Yeah. You're just fucking bashing it down so low. You're like, I don't gotta deal with this shit. It's like we're pushing into the dark. Like, people have debt and they're like, fuck it, man. Like, I'll deal with this shit some other day. It's like, you're just hiding from it. You're not doing anything. Yeah. 2 seconds, we're gonna take a break here on the Fear Being Average podcast. Get part 2 going. I'm gonna keep this recorded. Keep it rolling. Oh. Speaking of the tight body.